Sami was exhausted. It was nearly midnight, and he had just finished a long shift at the hospital where he worked as a paramedic. His body ached, and his mind was foggy with fatigue. He grabbed his phone, checked his messages, and saw a missed call from an unknown number. A voicemail was left. Curious, he played it. At first, all he heard was heavy breathing. Then a faint whisper, "Help! Please, help me!" A chill ran down his spine. The voice was weak, almost desperate. The caller had said nothing else before the message ended. Sami's first instinct was to dismiss it as a prank, but something felt off. He redialed the number. "The number you are trying to reach does not exist." His stomach tightened. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone dialed the wrong number. But why did it feel so unsettling? He shook his head, took a shower, and got into bed. But sleep wouldn't come. At 2:37 a.m., his phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. He hesitated but picked up. "Hello?" he said, his voice hoarse. There was silence. Then the same whisper. "Help me! He's here!" Sami's breath caught in his throat. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice stronger now. No response, just more heavy breathing. Then a sudden click. The call disconnected. He sat up, his mind racing. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep now. Something was definitely wrong. He replayed the voicemail, trying to analyze the voice. It sounded familiar in a way he couldn't place. Was it someone he knew? He decided to track the number. Using a tracing app, he waited as it searched for the location. When the results came in, his hands started shaking. The call had come from his old house, his childhood home. But that was impossible. That house had been abandoned for years after his mother passed away. No one lived there anymore. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He grabbed his car keys and drove. The drive was eerie, the streets unusually empty. The streetlights flickered, casting long, twisted shadows. His heart pounded as he neared the house. It stood at the end of the street, its once white walls now grey with neglect. Windows were broken, and the front yard was overgrown with weeds. He stepped out of the car, the night air unnaturally cold. His breath came out in visible puffs. The house loomed before him, silent and dark. Then his phone rang again. Unknown number. Slowly he answered. "Who are you?" he whispered, gripping the phone tightly. For a few seconds there was silence. Then he heard something that made his blood freeze. A familiar voice. "Sami. It's me. Mama." His breath hitched. His mother had died 7 years ago. He turned to run, but the door slammed shut on its own. His phone slipped from his hand as the voice continued, now growing distorted and terrifying. "You left me, Sami. You left me alone." The lights flickered. A shadow moved in the hallway. The air grew ice-cold. Then he heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps coming closer. His mother's voice turned into a guttural, inhuman growl. "Come back to me." The last thing he saw before everything went dark was a figure in the doorway, tall, pale, with hollow eyes, staring right at him. And then, silence. The next morning, the neighbors found his car outside the house. The doors were unlocked, his phone on the ground. But Sami was never seen again. Only his phone remained, still receiving missed calls from an unknown number. And every night, at exactly 2:37 a.m., the voicemail plays the same message. "Help me. He's here." The police investigated the case, but there was no sign of forced entry, no evidence of foul play. Sami's disappearance became a local mystery, whispered among neighbors and discussed in online forums. Some believed he had run away. Others, those who knew the history of the house, were convinced it was something more sinister. Years passed. The house remained abandoned, but strange occurrences continued. A few daring souls who entered reported hearing whispers in the dark, their phones buzzing at exactly 2:37 a.m. One journalist, determined to uncover the truth, spent a night inside. She set up cameras, voice recorders, and motion detectors. For hours, nothing happened. Then, at 2:37 a.m., her phone rang. She answered, heart pounding. "Who is this?" The voice was barely a whisper. "Help me. He's here." Her breath hitched. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. Her cameras recorded flickering lights, an unnatural shadow stretching across the floor. A shriek echoed through the house, and then silence. By morning, she was gone. Only her phone remained, buzzing with a missed call from an unknown number. The legend of Sami and the house at the end of the street grew. Some say if you stand outside at 2:37 a.m. and call his number, you'll hear his voice whispering back, "Help me! He's here!"